Hello STEM scientists. Today we're going to do an experiment that I'd like you to try at home. To do this experiment, you're going to need some liquid soap, a teaspoon and a tablespoon measure, a flat plate, some water. I find that a small rubber spatula helps, and something to blow bubbles with. If you have one of the little bubble blowers, great. If not, I made this one using a paper clip, so you can make one as well. What we're going to do is start with just straight soap and see how many bubbles it blows. And we're going to test it 3 times, and we're going to write down our data. And then we're going to slowly add a teaspoon of water at a time and keep diluting the solution and blowing bubbles and figuring out what is the best ratio of soap to water to create the most bubbles. So this is how I'm going to start. Let me show you my plate. I'm going to take my tablespoon measure. I'm going to squeeze out a tablespoon of our liquid soap. And then I'm going to use my rubber spatula to get this onto the plate because I want to get all of it out and it tends to stick to the spoon. You don't have to do this step, but I'm trying to be scientific, so trying to make sure it is evenly measured. And our first test, we're going to dip our bubble wand into it, and I'm going to see how many bubbles I can blow using this one. So I've got to kind of count quickly because the wind's blowing this way. Oh wow, that was about 20. So I'm going to write down 20. I've made a chart ahead of time that says water on one side and bubbles on the other, and adding no water to the bubble solution, I got about 20 bubbles. So I'm going to write that down, but I'm going to try this a couple times because I noticed when I was doing this in practice that sometimes it worked better than others. Sometimes you have a dud round when you're blowing bubbles and nothing blows. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was about 11 this time. So I'm going to write an 11 down, and I'm going to try it one more time. Okay, and that time I got 0, so I'll put 0 down. Like I said, sometimes it just doesn't work. So now I have, with 0 water added, one time I got 20 bubbles, one time I got 11, and one time I got 0. Now, I'm ready to add 1 teaspoon of water. And I'm going to take a minute and just stir this up so it's evenly mixed in, because if I don't stir it, I'm not changing the solution. And when I think it's all ready and evenly mixed in, I'm going to try and blow again. The wind's blowing it already. There was 1, 2. That was about 10. So on my next line, where I've written that I'm adding 1 teaspoon of water, I'm going to say that I came up with 10 bubbles. But you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to test it 2 more times and watch my pencil roll across the table. All right, here we go again. 0. And a 3rd time. 0. All right, so 10 was my best one for that round. Now that I've tested it 3 times, going to add another teaspoon of water. Mix it up really well. Test again 3 times. And I'm going to keep doing this until I cannot blow a bubble. Because what's going to happen is as I add more and more water to this liquid, eventually it's going to lose that ability to stick together into a bubble form. Because too much water, you can't blow a bubble with just water. So, what's the science that's happening behind today's experiment? tiny water particles are attracted to one another, almost like magnets, but they prefer to stay connected rather than separate. This is called cohesion. Some of you may remember an experiment we tried last year when I filled a cup to the top with water and then added coins slowly until the full cup of water finally lost that cohesion and water ran over the edge of the glass. Now, the liquid soap molecules also have a strong cohesion. However, what's actually happening when we blow a bubble is that the bubble solution is making like a bubble sandwich with 3 layers. And what I mean by that is that in that bubble, there are 3 layers. The outer layer is soap, the middle layer is water, and the inside layer is soap. Soap molecules are made up of 2 parts that kind of look like a spoon. Now, the head of the spoon is attracted to the water while the handle of the spoon is not, so it turns away from the water molecules. This helps form the round shape of the bubble. Have you ever tried to make a square-shaped or triangle-shaped bubble wand? No matter the shape, your bubble will still be a sphere because the middle layer of the bubble, the water layer, forces it into that shape as the water molecules are attracted to one another and their clustering forms a sphere. Now, this experiment can be taken a step further for some of my older students or anybody who wants an extra challenge. When you find the best ratio of water to soap, I want you to then add a small amount of one of these ingredients to see if it also increases how long your bubbles will last. You can add sugar, corn syrup, glycerin, or baking powder. All 4 of those are said to slow down how quickly the water inside the bubble can evaporate and thus make your bubbles last even longer. And you can play with the ratios of that as well, but I would say start small and then increase as you see it working, and then at some point it probably will be too much, just like adding the water. Eventually we got too much water. Now, when the experiment's all over, I need to go back and look at my data and say, at what mixture was this the best at producing bubbles? And at almost every level, I got a 0 somewhere in there. So I'm going to disregard the zeros. But I'm going to look at the fact that when I had no water in the bubble solution, I got about 20 bubbles. But I'm going to say I almost preferred it at 1 teaspoon of water, because what I noticed was it was really hard to get with 0 water, with no water in it. It was really hard to get anything to even stick to the bubble wand. And that may just be my bubble wand. You might get completely different results. But I noticed it just wouldn't even stick. It took me 4 or 5 tries to get it to create a solid sheen. But when I added 1 teaspoon, it was definitely able to stick better. Now, clearly, I don't want to go all the way down to the bottom here where you're getting like 1 bubble. So I think I would make a ratio of 1 tablespoon of soap to 1 teaspoon of water in order to create the best bubbles and not waste as much time having to dip my wand into the solution. So that's how I'm going to create my bubble solution this summer.